Delmarva Today with Don Rush.
The contents of the Ward Museum will be relocated to the Powell Building in downtown Salisbury, and it comes after the failure of the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning unit. Also comes at a time when the university decided to cut ties with the Ward Foundation, and the move has set off a sharp reaction from longtime supporters of the museum. You're listening to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. In our studio this afternoon is Karen Olmsted. She's provost for the Salisbury University. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Don.
So I want to begin with, let's get into the cost business. And this is what at least I understand. In replacing the cost, the university has said it's going to cost millions of dollars. I saw one estimate at $10 million, this according to the state procurement estimates. And Rich Smoker, the former chair of the Ward Foundation Board of Directors, longtime carver, he brought in Rick Hoddle, and he consulted with SU engineers, they say, and came up with a $400,000 replacement for HVAC to last maybe 15 years, or maybe $1 million for a geothermal to last 30 years. So that's kind of the setup. Why are we seeing the two difference in terms of the costs?
So that's a great question, Don, and not one that's usually within my wheelhouse, right? I'm the academic vice president of the university. But my understanding is that those estimates were that from Dick Hoddle was based on certainly his professional expertise, but a quick look, not done through the normal procurement and examination process, are very well established facilities folks who have taken great care of the museum, kind of in addition to what the university already provides on a regular basis. Had a thorough analysis done a few years ago, which came back at a much higher number. And when you multiply that by the increased costs that have happened over, as a result of COVID, with supply chain issues and staffing issues and all that, the number that we've been looking at between $6 and $15 million for the HVAC system, which isn't just the boiler, or isn't just this part or that part. It's really the entire system. And then beyond that, the other facilities related things in terms of building envelope and so I don't know enough about facilities to go through a list of what would cost what, but I'm pretty confident that our facilities folks know what they're talking about. But to me, that's not really the issue around our decision for the ward. The HVAC system is certainly not the only issue.
All right. Let me just follow up with one thing. So you guys folks talk about a museum-style HVAC system as opposed to, say, just a regular system, I guess, that we often have. What, from what you understand, what's the difference between the two?
So for, and this relates to not just exhibition of the pieces, but storage of the pieces, right? So you said the contents will be relocated downtown. Actually, some of the pieces will be relocated downtown for exhibition in a space that honestly will have commercial quality HVAC. The vast part of the collection will be put in appropriate climate-controlled storage, or, as I mentioned, in other settings, I'm really excited about the opportunity to get some exhibits out to the public, out to different places, whether it's Crisfield, Pocomoke, around the shore, libraries, other museums. But a museum quality has to do with the percent humidity and how well you can control that and how well you can control the temperature. So that's museum quality, and that's why it costs so much more. Commercial quality is certainly, kind of what the situation is right now at the ward, and also it's not just the HVAC system itself. I want to underscore that. It's the power that is required to operate those systems 24/7. So if you have a system that's running and then you turn the power off, or you turn the system off in the evening to save on your electric bill, that does not achieve any kind of the climate control that we need. So we really have, the university has an incredibly strong commitment to the preservation of the collection and the appropriate storage and display of it. And so that's how we felt we needed to take control.
Now, you mentioned a moment ago that there's an ongoing cost. I mean, obviously beyond HVAC. In looking at and reading about this, I think you said that you've provided something like $10 million, I think it is, over since 2000, which I'm at the back of the envelope. I figures out about $434,000 a year. I'm sure that varies from time to time. So why is that? What is the difference going to be in terms of financial commitment if you move the collection to Powell? And some of the argument is, look, the university made this commitment to the Ward Museum and to the people who support it, and museums don't necessarily always make money.
Sure, they don't always make money. I think it's reasonable to expect that they come at least to breaking even or coming close. The agreement was made in the year 2000, so almost a quarter century ago. Times change, situations change. The scope of the activities in the Ward Museum has changed. The money that we provide the Ward Museum is only a portion of its budget. I mean, and I want to give credit to the Ward Foundation and the staff at the Ward Museum for years and years. They have raised significant dollars to run all the programming out of the museum, educational programming. We'd really like to see that continue, that level of educational programming. But at the end of the day, when we look at museum traffic, it's, even pre-COVID, it's less than 9 people a day come into that museum. And the university had to make a decision about how can we best manage the scope of this incredibly important resource, scope of activities, at a level that the university can support. And we have, a commitment to provide the same level of support, but at a level that the museum can operate in terms of externally generated funding as well. And their financial situation, despite their very best efforts, again, I want to underscore this, they have tried so hard. It's an all-volunteer board, and then, we provide funding to pay several of the staff. They have not been able to, to be financially solvent. The latest audit report, kind of very clearly pointed that out. And then there's this other piece that the university has to be attend to its relationships with other entities, and it's very hard for the university. It's really impossible for the university to be affiliated with an organization that is not what's called a going concern. Does not have a financial path forward. And so that's why we decided to take direct control so we could manage costs, manage the activities, and kind of maybe contain them within the funding that's available.
So are you saying that if you move the collection to the Powell Museum or the Powell Building, that you're going to do it cheaper?
I think we can. Yep. I think we can do it cheaper, or I think maybe we can raise the money for the activities that we want to support in terms of environmental education, cultural heritage preservation, all those types of things. That's our absolute goal. We certainly wouldn't be moving downtown if we didn't have an intention to do that.
And I can understand that there's an annual, $200,000 or whatever it comes from the state. Is that right? That Norm Conway. What was the monies that
$200,000 is my understanding. It's kind of hard to find the records on these things for that long ago, but that's what we represent. Actually, from work that other people have done looking for this, I think it was $200,000 a year through the time that it took the university to pay off the debt that we assumed in 2000 on behalf of the Ward Foundation. But that money we continue to allocate. Then I don't have my notes right in front of me, but probably around 4 or 5 years ago, we upped that money to $330,000 a year. We also added $70,000 a year for facilities renewal to be expended to support the building, and that's all very clearly laid out in our annual operating agreement.
So the Powell Building itself, it's going to be smaller, as I understand it. And there's some debate about how accessible everything is going to be in the end, because you certainly have some vision in terms of what's going to happen to lot 1. Some of those parking lots are going to be filled up because that's what the city certainly envisions. And we should all note that those parking lots were not supposed to be there forever, but here we are, right? Right. So what about issues like parking and accessibility?
So that's certainly a focus for us, and as a public institution, and it'll be a public space, we're going to be very focused on that. We're going to work with the city on that. I'm very excited about that opportunity. I'm also thinking about, certainly about accessibility in terms of the things that you're talking about, parking and people maybe who, can't climb stairs or something to get into that. We will attend to that. But accessibility is also how much is it there for people? And, we feel strongly that having it downtown, I was just downtown last night, actually, and there are a lot of people walking around eating ice cream, going to restaurants, going to the public library that's right there. I just, I feel strongly that will be a way that people will have access to the museum, and particularly younger people. So that's our hope, but we will certainly attend to any kind of ADA-related access issues and make sure parking isn't problematic. Might not be, right at I'm sure there'll be a handicap drop-off area. I don't know if we'll have parking right in front of the door like we have currently at the Ward.
One of the phrases that struck me in the statement that you folks issued is that the relationship with the Ward Museum, that there was a misalignment of goals for collection and activities. What did that mean?
That's a good question. So, and I think this is, there's nothing wrong with our sets of goals and their sets of goals. They're just not perfectly aligned. So in conversations last fall in particular with the Ward Foundation board, there was clearly a focus on carving traditions, which are so important, right? The World Championship, which is so important to members of that community. To have the largest collection of carved wildfowl art in the world, which is so important to that community. The university gets that, but we also are very focused on cultural heritage preservation more broadly. We're more also focused on environmental education. We're also focused on expanding community outreach. And so and that frankly is that is the stated mission of the Ward Museum. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there in terms of, do we continue to accumulate more and more decoy art and really have that as a focus, or do we focus on these other missions, aspects of the Ward Museum's mission, which is this, cultural preservation more broadly, folk art, environmental education, and the like. And the university is that piece aligns perfectly with the university's mission.
So I want to turn to public relations. I mean,
Sure.
you and I were at the meeting the other night at the Waukesha County Council, and there were clearly people felt they had supported this institution for a long time, and they felt betrayed. And I talked to Rich Smoker about a week or so ago, and I want to play what he had to say in terms of his feeling about what he was seeing. And he talks about these little bricks, I guess, that they're in front of the when you
They're
get
in the
into the
lobby.
building, the lobby. And this is what he had to say.
On the wall, when you first walk in, there's 3 panels, and all they are is business card size wooden blocks, and they have names on them. And each one of those blocks was $1,000. I know that because my name's on it, and my family's name is on it, and a lot of people that I know are on it, and a lot of people who have gone on. Me, as a member of the Ward Foundation and as a past officer on the board of directors, I don't feel as though we're honoring their memory. Both the Wards, Lemon Steve, or any of the people who have gone on before us. These are people that were dedicated to put this art form in front of the world, and now it's being taken away.
So I want to ask you, this is a reaction that he has. He certainly feels betrayed. You can hear it in his voice. What happened between the university on the one hand and all these people who supported the Ward Museum on the other, and the Ward Foundation?
So I actually had that same conversation with Rich yesterday afternoon, and I want to recognize him as for the incredible artist and teacher that he is, and all that he's given to the Ward Museum. I think nobody could contest that. He's been an incredible contributor. And I would say that at the university, our heart is broken too about the reality that we face at the Ward Museum. And but we need to find a path forward. So in terms of the timing, and I guess I haven't really done a good job of laying out why it's not all rolled out perfectly. We were working with the Ward Foundation to manage our communications in concert, so that once we had decided with them, with the approval of the Ward Foundation, to move downtown to the Powell Building, which we didn't want to jeopardize negotiations by identifying a space and then have to get a reasonable, manageable rental on it. We agreed to work together on our communications. And then one day I was told that a press release was going out at 2:30. That was that by the Ward Foundation, by the from the museum's executive director, period. And that was it. And so we were then the university was put into a complete reaction mode, responding to the news that had gone out, this, kind of partnering hand in hand, working together. And I get it. They were being asked what's going on. The museum's being closed from July, since July, early July. But the fact that they moved, put out their press release, really with little warning to us, put us in more of a reactionary position. And we haven't had time. People said, have asked me, what are you going to do with the building? Well, that's a great question. It's not the first question on our to-do list. Our to-do list is care for the collection, get the museum back open in a space that's suitable, and support those educational programs. So I feel like the university's been a little bit mistreated because we have been reacting to decisions that have been made. And then another decision, again, this is a little misalignment of goals, but perfectly understandable, I'd say. I think different bodies can be right for different reasons. The Ward Foundation is very much focused on the World's competition. I get that. That is end of April, I think April 21st. I get that. They have contractual obligations related to it. But in doing that, they have pretty clearly said we're not going to be able to support the transition to downtown. Well, the university is very focused on getting the museum back open again. So they're doing what they think is important, and I understand that. There's several reasons why that's the case. We think other things are important, and so we're moving forward on that. So, it's not just Rich Smoker. There are people with memorial gardens there. They're also, and you could hear the passion last night at the county council meeting. People's, beloved family members, treasured collections. We are going to take care of all that and get communication about that. We're not selling it. I don't know that there's all these rumors out there. We have very detailed inventories of all of those things so that we will get to it in turn. But we have a university to run as well. We don't have a staff that doesn't have other things to do, that they can just pick up that part of the responsibility. And so we're doing the very best that we can to support the mission of the Ward Museum and to preserve the collection.
Because one of the things that we heard, and certainly heard it on the meeting as well, is that in fact, I was talking to Arthur Leonard, and who's now chair of the board, and he's saying, we were going along, and we had some real questions about, whether or not the location of the Powell building was going to be adequate enough. Was there some kind of alternative? And he said, look, we were going along, and all of a sudden we were told, nope, that's it, we're done. So why is it he's caught off guard? I mean, because you're talking about like a press release.
I don't know why he would be caught off guard. He toured the Powell building with me and staff from the Ward Museum who were very excited about it. I have, I have other information that, the Ward Foundation discussed this. Certainly it's the Powell building is an exciting space for the university because of its adjacency to our other downtown presence and its adjacency to all sorts of cool stuff downtown. But I don't know why they would have been surprised by that since they toured the building. I was right there, and staff were very excited. I can't say that he was particularly excited, but that was agreed to. And then they did not mention the downtown space in their initial press release because we were still in the negotiations. But they, put out their press release before we had a chance to agree to move forward on that.
The other night, too, we had John Cannon, president of the county council, and there were a number of other people who said, not only praised the fact that there was this building, but Cannon in particular said, look, you have to deal with the fact that you have these constituents out there, and certainly some of his as well, and that something needs to be worked out here. What do those words have any value in terms of where you're going? I mean, and I think almost all the council people had certainly serious concerns about this move.
So, sure. I mean, I don't think a deal can be worked out that we're going to find a way to keep the Ward Museum in that space. There's certainly no evidence of a financial capacity that would happen. And we don't really have the time here to go through why that is, but I think we have pretty strong evidence that's not the case. But it's a beautiful building in a beautiful site. And I mentioned this last night, that could be put to other amazing public purposes, including an exhibition of decoy art. But, what about a kind of a flagship space for the library, convening space? It could be still a wedding space, educational and environmental education space, and then all the other things that libraries do. I think that would be a great thing to examine. And my guess is there's probably more money for public spaces like that for libraries or other activities than museums that are owned by the state. So we'd love to entertain conversations about that type of thing. We haven't been able to get to that because we have so many other things related to the museum that we're doing. And that's, again, we don't see that as secondary, but it's not part of how we, our day-to-day work running a university serving students. And I will just comment related to that there were so many comments last evening about we have all these other great buildings on campus. Why can't we just have the same money pour into the Ward Museum? Those buildings are operated to educate students who pay tuition, and that's our primary mission. And so I think we're really talking about apples and oranges when we talk about those two things. Yep.
In terms of the Ward Museum, what do you see then, and the Ward Foundation? What do you see as the relationship between, going forward, the relationship between the university and the foundation? I mean, do they have any interaction? What's that relationship do you think is going to be like then?
Well, the Ward Foundation and its, the folks that are on the board and then their network represent really the brain trust of decoy art and that part of folklore tradition on the shore and really around the world. And so I really hope that we can remain associated with them and have them support us in an advisory capacity. We will no longer hire the Ward Foundation to run, to operate a museum, to pay the staff to take care of the space, but we certainly hope that we can remain associated with them to tap into their expertise. But we can no longer be affiliated formally with a foundation that is in, the kind of financial straits that the Ward Foundation is, and again, one that we might have a little bit different sense of our priorities.
You don't see, for instance, any kind of future working relationship with them? Whether they may not oversee the
sure, absolutely,
but
absolutely.
As I understand it, I'm talking to people. They do plan to continue to go on, but in what form? Mm-hmm. I mean, do you see a relationship there? It's particularly after this rupture.
I can imagine the Ward Foundation is very committed to holding world's competitions into the future. That's a cool thing. They have it in Ocean City, have been able to have it for a few years. That'd be something that the university can't financially support, but it's a celebration of an important part of our heritage. So I see no reason why we wouldn't be associated with them like we are with so many public serving organizations. But in terms of hiring them to run our the collection and operate those programs, we won't be doing that any longer.
You think you can overcome this rupture of relations between the university and the foundation?
I hope so. I mean, they're really committed people on the same side where I think we're all working towards the same collective general goal. How we get there maybe is viewed as a little bit different, but it's in the university's interest to maintain this incredible part of our heritage, the Eastern Shore heritage specifically. So absolutely. But the university also has to focus on our primary mission and live within our budget. That's, an important thing for an organization to do.
We've been speaking with Karen Olmsted. She is the provost for Salisbury University about the decision to relocate the wildflower art that's currently at the Ward Museum on Shoemaker Drive to the Powell Building in downtown Salisbury. Appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Yep. Thanks for having us in, Don.
And this week, there was a forum before the Wicomico County Council, which heard a large number of museum supporters call for the collection to stay at its current location on Shoemaker Drive. A number of council members spoke of the importance of the Ward Museum, with President John Cannon urging both sides to find some common ground. The current chair of the Ward Foundation Board of Directors was in attendance. During our interview, he began with recounting the work that the museum staff did to clean out the mold that had been found in the building.
First confronted with the mold issue, we wanted to go clean the artwork. I mean, that was what we wanted to do, was go clean the artwork. We were told not to because of the insurance. They wanted to wait and put in an insurance claim to see whether the insurance was going to cover what have you. So that prolonged things. Insurance companies take time. I can't remember the exact date when it came back. The insurance company did not go with the claim. That they said they did not, they were not going to honor the claim because the university owned the equipment. The university knew the equipment was failing, and since the university knew the system was failing, they weren't going to pay the claim. So we were being penalized because of the system failure, because it was the university's property. So there again, we got knocked back. So after the insurance company denied the claim, we said, all right, we can't just let the artwork sit and mold to accumulate. So we need to go back in there and start cleaning. And again, delayed by the university, let's see if we can do it, another way, and more delay. And finally, we were able to get with a couple different firms, and they taught our maintenance staff how to clean the artwork properly. And we did that at our own expense. So the foundation was cleaning the university's art collection at no expense to the university. And then they came to us and said, okay, because of the catastrophic HVAC system failure, which was back up and running like a week after it failed, because of this catastrophic failure and your lack of funding, we want to move you downstairs or downtown to a smaller space. That way you'll be able to not have the expenditures you have now with the museum and the building expense and all that kind of stuff. So being a good partner, we went down and looked at it. And of course we had questions about it. What are the future plans for Salisbury? What are the plans for the building itself? Because right now it's just a barren hall on the one level of the Powell building. Accessibility for disabled persons is going to be an issue. I mean, there is a elevator and there's a front entranceway on Main Street, but if you go through Main Street, parking is an issue. So a disabled person's going to have a problem getting into the museum from anywhere. And we don't exactly know how much space is going to be available to us for display, for education, for office space, not to mention storage, which we definitely need for everything. So there's a lot of unknowns. And so we put up a little, wait a minute, is there any other place we can go? Is there any other alternative? And like I said in there, we were sent an email. There is no alternative. You're going to move.
Let me ask you this, because one of the issues came up is to replacing the HVAC system. Okay. I know this Rich Stoker came up with a proposal of about $400,000.
Right.
The university says wasn't good enough, could cost millions, and one of the issues they say is that they need what they call a museum-style HVAC system, and that's one of the things that pumps up the numbers, as opposed to what Rich was offering up. And apparently they went through a procurement system as well, which has its own rules and regulations. What about that? They're faced with this issue.
Okay, so they went through a firm in Easton, GIPE, and they had their study done to find out what system would work. And they picked the best system that they could possibly pick. It's a geothermal system. It would require tearing up the parking lot, building new buildings, all for this, excellent system that would apparently heat and cool our building a lot more proficiently than what we have now. So, but the cost of it is prohibitive. So we said, okay, an alternative can be thought up. So we got our own professional, the foundation did, Rich did, and found Mr. Dick Hoddle, who has been a supporter of the foundation. He's donated to the foundation in the past, and he's a HVAC system professional. That's what he does, and he's been doing that for at least 50 years. So he knows the ins and the outs of the heating and air conditioning system. And he came in, inspected it, looked at it, and said, okay, I know the engineers at GIPE. I'll go talk to them. He did. He came back to us, and we had a meeting with the Ward Foundation board and a couple members from the university, and he told us what his proposal was, and it was roughly $400,000 to fix this thing. And yes, it is not a long-term fix, but it's a fix that would last for 10 years. And he proposed that he go meet with the provost, with the president of the university, with their facilities management, and discuss with them. And they would not even entertain him coming to speak to them. They just flatly turned him down. They didn't have time for him, which is another. We can't move forward if you're constantly throwing up walls. Nope, we do not want to talk to your man. We have our study. That's what we're going with.
One of the things is they then move ahead and they say, looking down the road, in addition to something $10 million or whatever the figure was, that there was an added some 19 or $9 million or so for projected out to maintain everything, not just itself. Right. Is that an accurate figure?
That's something that I don't have a clue with. I know the building is only 30 years old. And if there's a building on the university that's 30 years old, they're not going to just throw it away. And that's, in essence, what they're doing with us. They're evicting us and saying, your building's no good, you can't be here, we're going to take it over. So if the foundation doesn't maintain it, but the university's now going to accept that responsibility and fix it, why not fix it with the foundation in it? That doesn't make good sense to me. If you're willing to spend the money to fix it, allow the foundation to stay in it, because it was purposely built as our home, back in '93.
But apparently they've decided that the costs are too high, both in terms of replacement, the plan they have, right, obviously, and then down the road. I mean, and so they're dealing obviously with their own budgets.
And that's part of the lack of transparency that they've had. I know they're under pressure from the university system of Maryland with the Regent. But if they're going to spend the money, which apparently they are, to fix it, why can't they fix it with the foundation in the building?
Well, they're saying they would go ahead and decide to move because it just overall is too expensive. I mean, right. Perhaps they don't have faith that you can raise the other money?
I would guess. Coming out of COVID, I know fundraising is difficult, but we haven't been given a chance. And that's one of my biggest setbacks is we haven't been given a chance. We're given a choice, and then we're not given a choice. They take the choice away from us and decide for us, just like the moving from the museum to the Powell building. We thought we were working forward to move to the Powell, and then all of a sudden, no, we're not. You're not going to move to the Powell. The next, and then like the announcement to close the university or close the foundation permanently came as a shock to us. We're like, holy cow, who decided this? That there was no partnership, there was no discussion. Bam, you're done. So besides for the funding and where the money's coming from, and like they're saying, I think if the information was out there that the foundation needed money, I think the people of Wicomico County, of Salisbury, would step up. They have in the past.
The thing about the financing is that this sounds like it's been a long-term problem, that it's not just simply COVID, that there was a debt obviously they assumed, and you're still getting money. I think the university says $20 million, which I figured is about like $434,000 or something a year, although I'm sure it varies from time to time. What about that issue?
Well, the fundraising part of it, since we're associated with the university, is harder to raise funds because just like from the common carver standpoint, the common carver sees it as, well, the university is supporting the Ward Foundation. Therefore, I don't have to, because the university is supposed to be their partner. They'll take care of it. And I think that's part of the problem, is that because of our association with the university, I think the donors have not looked at it the same as if we were able to put out, hey, we're hurting, we need some funds. Then just like the $7 membership fee, I mean, we kept it low so we could attract people. But if the other people knew that we needed the funds and we were going to raise our membership, I think people would step up. So the funding would come. But it's hard to move forward when you're being restricted at every step you try to take.
Finally, it looks as if, at least was what I'm hearing, is that this could be the last year of the championship in terms of the wildfire. Do you think that's true?
I do not. I think it will continue because will it continue in Ocean City? We are contractually signed a deal with Ocean City with the convention center for another 3 years. So I'm pretty sure it'll go through for another 3 years. After that, whether it will be held in Ocean City, in Salisbury, in New Orleans, Chicago, we don't know. You know, that's one of those down the road. Hopefully it'll remain regional, you know, Ocean City, Salisbury, Easton, Cambridge, Chrisfield, somewhere. But yes, the World Championships need to be on the Eastern Shore. They need to be held by the Ward Foundation because if we don't do it, I guarantee somebody will step up and take over that title of World Championships. So I would hope that the Ward Foundation will step up and maintain the World Championship so we can keep that on the shore.
Arthur Leonard, Chair of the Ward Foundation Board of Directors. You're listening to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush.
Delmarva Today with Don Rush.